Day 774 of the Trump administration. And the president's not going to like this. He's now facing a brand new investigation, the widest since the launch of the Mueller inquiry, and one that could extend well into the 2020 campaign. The Democratic head of the House Judiciary Committee, Congressman Jerry Nadler of New York, today launched an aggressive investigation into three basic areas: allegations of obstruction of justice, public corruption, and other abuses of power by President Trump and his inner circle. The Judiciary Committee is demanding documents from 81 people and agencies and entities linked to Trump and his associates from every aspect of Donald Trump's life, spanning his business, his campaign, his family, and his administration. Those insiders include his sons Don Jr. and Eric, Alan Weisselberg, CFO of the Trump Organization, Jared Kushner, former White House counsel Don McGahn, former comms director Hope Hicks, among many others. The committee is asking for documents from the White House, Trump's campaign, Trump's foundation, as well as the FBI and the NRA. A request was also made for information about that 2016 Trump Tower meeting to get dirt on Hillary Clinton, about Trump's intervention with the FBI on behalf of Michael Flynn, about the firing of James Comey, the efforts to build a Trump Tower in Moscow, possible Russian financing, and the hush money payments that Michael Cohen testified about just last Wednesday. It's been noted before. It will be noted again. This committee, House Judiciary, has the power to draft articles of impeachment, which is what makes this new inquiry especially significant. Earlier on this network tonight, Committee Chairman Nadler talked to Rachel Maddow.
We've been having some very positive responses from a number of the 81 people today. For 2 years, the Republican Congress did no oversight on the administration, none. They in fact acted as shields for the administration for whatever they wanted to do. We have to protect the rule of law, and that means we have to investigate and hold hearings and lay out for the American people if the administration is involved in abuses of power or obstruction of justice.
Now, Chairman Nadler says both Mueller's office and the Southern District of New York are aware that his committee has made these requests. The recipients now have 2 weeks to comply. The 81 names listed today are just the start, a House Judiciary Committee source is telling NBC News. According to this very source, quote, that was the first phase of document requests. We have more letters coming soon. Well, tonight, the White House press secretary put out this statement about the inquiry. It reads in part: today, Chairman Nadler opened up a disgraceful and abusive investigation into tired, false allegations already investigated by the special counsel and committees in both chambers of Congress. Chairman Nadler and his fellow Democrats have embarked on this fishing expedition because they are terrified that their 2-year false narrative of Russia collusion is crumbling. Their intimidation and abuse of American citizens is shameful. Earlier today, the president was asked how he'll respond to this move.
Are you going to cooperate with Mr. Nadler?
I cooperate all the time with everybody. And you know the beautiful thing? No collusion. It's all a hoax. You're going to learn about that as you grow older. It's a political hoax. There's no collusion. There's no anything.
As sometimes happens, over this past weekend, the president's Twitter account seemed in its tone and tenor and content to anticipate something big was coming. He wrote, quote, I am an innocent man being persecuted by some very bad, conflicted and corrupt people in a witch hunt that is illegal. And here's what he told the Conservative Political Action Conference during Saturday's 2-hour-long speech.
So they don't have anything with Russia. There's no collusion. So now they go and morph into, let's inspect every deal he's ever done. We're going to go into his finances. We're going to check his deals. We're going to check. These people are sick.
More on that event later on in our broadcast. Judiciary is not the only committee ramping up Trump investigations. Today, the Democratic chairs of Intel, Oversight, and Foreign Affairs combined all requested documents and interviews related to President Trump's communications with one Vladimir Putin. They're interested in Trump's one-on-one conversations with the Russian leader and the president's reported efforts to hide some of those communications. As usual, it's a lot on a Monday night, and with us to talk about it, our lead-off panel, Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, Frank Figliuzzi, former FBI assistant director for counterintelligence, and Cynthia Alksne, a former federal prosecutor and a veteran of the U.S. Justice Department. Frank, part of the storyline of this story has been Mueller is not necessarily the president's greater danger. It could be the Southern District of New York, in effect, the New York branch of the Justice Department. Though with that in mind, where do you place all of this from the House of Representatives as an existential threat to this presidency?
So this is an interesting topic because Mueller's been conducting the inquiry with, number one, a very limited remit. Remember, that was the parameters of that involved Russia and criminal collusion. Southern District of New York has a number of cases, but they're conducting it through proper grand jury proceedings, much of it in secrecy. Now we're going to see a very public display of all things bad for Trump. And my thinking here is multiple. First, to what degree is Trump going to be able to restrain himself from this public lashing he's about to see play out as friends, associates, colleagues get called, even family members get called, even subpoenaed to testify? But also the public optics of this is going to be very interesting. To what degree is Nadler and Judiciary Committee and the other committees ready to say this is a credible, well-staffed, well-planned investigation so that the public perception is that this is credible, that this isn't a beating up of a president, but rather that this is serious oversight. It looks like we're, for the first time in a very long time, about to see what serious oversight looks like, but the complications of coordination with Southern District, with Mueller, and the optics to the American people are very essential so that this does not seem like the president will call it a witch hunt.
Peter, you get to cover the guy, and as we tried to say in very clear English at the top of the broadcast, he's just not going to like this. To Frank's narrative, 81 names of people, places, agencies, entities, that is a strong counter-narrative to the witch hunt.
Well, look, you know, when we write the history of this time, I think we'll remember today as the day that the House of Representatives opened an impeachment inquiry against the President of the United States. In all but name. They didn't use the I word. They did everything but that. They threw out so many different fishing lines, if you will, to examine so many different elements, so many different aspects, so many different allegations that have been raised about this president for 2 years without the kind of public airing they're about to give it, that, you know, it's clearly aimed at that one ultimate possible target. Now, it may be that Democrats don't go forward with impeachment down the road. It may decide that there's not enough evidence there. It may decide that it's not politically advantageous, that they can't win the votes in the Senate where they would need at least 20 Republican senators to go with them for conviction. But this is the day that they opened up, you know, what amounts to probably a year-long effort to uncover and expose all the various misdeeds that they suspect the president of having committed in a very public and very what could be a very painful way for this president and his White House.
Now, Counselor, do you agree with that point that our wise colleague just made, that this was the opening of an impeachment inquiry, though not in title? And can you tell our viewers how they should process the threat that this represents as opposed to Mueller and the other stuff that we talk about here every night?
Well, yes, I would agree that's what it is, particularly because Weisselberg is on the list and the documents, and recognize that the Weisselberg and all of the document productions is actually quite limited at this point. It's just what they produced before. But if they look and see that there's not enough information, there's just going to be a second round, and there's just going to be more and more and more when it comes to the documents. And that is going to make the president blow a gasket. I don't think there's any question about that. If we think he had a bad week last week with a crazy speech, wait till Weisselberg is in front of the in testifying in the House. But yes, I think it's a huge threat because not only do they not have the parameters of Mueller, or the parameters of the Southern District. They don't have the parameters of crimes. What they can view as an abuse of power is whatever they say an abuse of power is. It can be you spoke to Whitaker and wanted to change even though nothing happened, or you pressured somebody. It doesn't have to rise to the level of a crime beyond a reasonable doubt, and they can be looking at it as an abuse of power, as a list for an impeachment. So it's very broad and a huge threat, and on every imaginable level.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.